I'd like to talk about exclusivity of religion, and specifically idolatry, for a second. I was raised as evangelical Christian, and what I was taught was that you weren't supposed to have other gods before me. That's what God said. And then you had Jesus say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. And what I thought that meant was that there was like a bunch of options, right? Like a grab bag. We're gonna have a bunch of these bottles of water, okay? And you had to make sure you had the right one. So all these different kinds of bottles, possibly, Buddha or Muhammad or Krishna or whatever. You had all these different kinds of options. There was one bottle in particular that was the right one. Through time, though, I discovered that that view had some limitations to it. There were some issues that came up. For instance, if my God was just one bottle among lots of bottles, one God amongst lots of gods, isn't that kind of a small God? I thought God was supposed to be infinite. Secondly, what about the people who accidentally picked the wrong bottle? Are they really deserving of hell because they tried to find water somewhere else? If we think of this water bottle as Jesus, and we hear it saying, I am the water that will quench your thirst, the one water. Well, what if we mistook the bottle for the water? What if that's what idolatry is? What if in this bottle, the water was speaking?
If you're going to critique a view, it's important to accurately represent the view. In this video, former Christian music artist Michael Gungor offers an analogy that he thinks describes Christian exclusivism, the idea that faith in Jesus is the only way of salvation. In Gungor's water bottle analogy, each water bottle represents a different religion. And just as there are many water bottles, there are many religions. But he says exclusivism teaches that only one water bottle, the one with the pink bow, is the right one. Unfortunately, Gungor's water bottle analogy is fundamentally flawed in at least two ways. First, his analogy assumes that all religions are fundamentally the same. Notice how while one water bottle has a superficial difference, a pink bow, they each contain the exact same thing: water. So if you were thirsty, it wouldn't really matter which water bottle you drank from. In fact, it would be absurd for someone to demand that you drink from the one with the pink bow. Ironically, this analogy is more accurately describing religious pluralism, the view that all religions are equally valid, than Christian exclusivism. This leads to the second fundamental flaw. The water bottle analogy fails to account for why Jesus is the only way. After all, there's no good justification for why someone needs to drink from the water bottle with the pink bow. So what would be a good analogy for Christian exclusivism? I'm glad you asked. Imagine a box of needles, and each needle contains a different solution, with only one containing insulin. Now, if you were diagnosed with type 1 juvenile diabetes, does it matter which needle you take? Absolutely. In fact, taking the wrong needle will have deadly consequences. In a similar way, we all have been diagnosed with a sin problem, and putting your trust in Jesus is the only cure. That's Christian exclusivism. Gungor also offers two challenges to the claim that Jesus is the only way. First, he says, if God was just one God among many gods, isn't that kind of a small God? I thought he was supposed to be infinite. Now, this tries to argue from an infinite God to an infinite number of ways to reach God. Some of you probably already see the problem. When theologians say God is infinite, they mean that certain attributes of God are without limit. They're using the word in a qualitative way. When we say that there's an infinite number of ways to reach God, we're using the word infinite in a quantitative way. So his reason relies on an equivocation of the word infinite, the words being used in two different ways. In addition, it just doesn't logically follow from an infinite God that there will be an infinite number of ways to be saved by God. That's a non sequitur. Moreover, the infinite God explicitly stated that no one comes to the Father except through Jesus. So there's that too. Second, Gungor says, what about the people who accidentally picked the wrong water bottle? Are they really deserving of hell because they tried to find water somewhere else? Because Gungor's faulty analogy misunderstands salvation, it also misunderstands sin. No one goes to hell because they accidentally picked the wrong religion. The reason people deserve God's judgment is because they have sinned against a holy God. Fortunately, God has provided a way of salvation for anyone who puts their trust in him.